right, welcome back. Glad you are with us. Jason Lewis, U.S. Senate candidate for the U.S. Senate out of Minnesota, is on the line and joining us. Again, at full disclosure, he and I did have lunch about 17 years ago in Woodbury at Champs. I don't know if he remembers that or not. He's accomplished a lot since then. He's sat in for Rush Limbaugh many times, had his own national show, ran for U.S. Congress, won a seat in the House of Representatives, now is running for U.S. Senate. So he's accomplished a lot in those 17 years. Jason, welcome to the broadcast. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, Brannon, good to hear your voice. I not only remember, I know exactly what you ordered.
Oh, my.
It was a hamburger.
Well, that's true. That would make sense. That would make sense at Champs.
Great,
so would it?
Great to be on your show.
Good to have you with us. Now, before you joined us, we played the audio off of a website there in the Twin Cities of the U.S. Senator from Minnesota, Mrs. Smith, Tina, talking about the bill that would protect the life of a child born after a botched abortion. She doesn't think that's appropriate medical care, Jason. Would you comment?
It's really quite remarkable. I mean, it's one thing voting against pain capable. It's one thing supporting partial birth abortion or late-term partial birth abortion, the procedure that Daniel Patrick Moynihan, liberal out of New York, called in 1996 the closest thing to infanticide he's ever seen. But, boy, it's a whole new, brave new world, Brannon, when you sit there on the Senate floor and back the governor of Virginia when he justified post-birth abortion. A baby survives a botched abortion, and the governor of Virginia says, well, we'll take that child, set them in a tray, decide whether it lives or not. Tina Smith, former executive director of Planned Parenthood, and now my opponent in the Senate race, said, well, to provide that child with medical treatment would be, quote-unquote, inappropriate. It shocks the conscience, my friend.
It absolutely does. The issue that's all over the news today, the last few days, has been voter fraud. Before you came on, we discussed the fact that you're doing pretty good in the polls. It's a dead heat in certain parts of the state. You seem to be ahead in northern Minnesota, tied in southern Minnesota, doing good in the suburbs of the Twin Cities. And, of course, the issue always is the actual cities themselves. And now Minnesota's making national news with the Veritas videos of potential ballot harvesting. I know everyone would like your comments on that.
Well, I would tell you, it's the usual methodology of the radical, we will do or say anything for power, ends justify the means left. Here's what's happened in Minnesota, not unlike other liberal states or more liberal states. I shouldn't say liberal states because Minnesota's not really that liberal anymore, but liberal politicians. The Secretary of State cut a deal with liberal groups to allow, first of all, ballot harvesting. Second of all, for ballots to be counted after the election on November 3rd. The Attorney General, Keith Ellison, instead of defending state election law, ignored it and started suing people for not socially distancing. That's where his priorities were. So now we've seen this video, and we're waiting for further confirmation of ballot harvesting with sealed ballots that weren't sealed in Ilhan Omar's 5th Congressional. The problem we've got is, as of now, they're going to count ballots postmarked on Election Day, but not delivered until November 10th. So on Election night, Brannon, imagine this. The Democrats are down 20,000 votes. The president only lost Minnesota by 44,000 votes in 2016. So the Democrats are down, we'll say a swing of 60. They're down 20. They got a week to find 20,000 votes. And then when that week's over, they're going to say, oh, well, a week isn't enough time to count all these ballots. We need another week. And you see where this is headed. And it's very, very troubling.
And yet anyone, such as your campaign, that comes out and says anything about it, you're going to be accused of trying to disenfranchise voters. You'll be accused of all kinds of things because we've already read the 23-page report by the Transition Integrity Project that is already giving the narrative to the media, to the campaigns, to the agitators. The things that you would naturally do, anyone in a legal position even, or a campaign, the things they would naturally do, they're already being described as being bully tactics, stealing the election, disenfranchising people. So anything that your team tries to do, they already have a narrative for why you're the bad guy, just simply trying to follow the rule of law and provide for a free and fair election.
Well, sure, but I mean, what people don't understand, well, actually, I think people do understand. If you fail to ensure ballot integrity, then someone cheating is actually suppressing your vote.
That's right.
If someone's allowed to to vote twice or whatever, screw around ballots, they're suppressing, they're disenfranchising legal voters. So that's too clever by half, and it just doesn't pass the smell test. If you ask the average Minnesotan, do you think we ought to have election integrity, they would say yes.
What do you think?
Who wouldn't, other than Democrats?
What do you think your Attorney General will do about this?
Nothing. I think it's going to end up in federal court. Hence, Amy Coney Barrett is a very important nomination. I hope it doesn't, and I hope there's no shenanigans going on. But they're already setting the stage. The Postmaster General, Brannon, said, look, we can't turn around this in a week. By the time you vote, supposedly with your postmark on November 3rd, you mail it, and you're in greater Minnesota. It doesn't get to the post office till the 6th or 7th. They have to process it. They mail it out to the Secretary of State. It doesn't get there till the 10th or 11th. Everybody knows. So he said, Postmaster General said we need at least 14 to 17 days. And then you want finality on November 3rd. So the deadline shouldn't be November 3rd. It should be October 15th. So the ballots are in by November 3rd. And instead of just mailing these things out carte blanche, we should go the old traditional absentee route and say, you solicit a ballot, you prove you are who you say you are, and you have a witness signature. I've got no problem with that. That's not what they're doing with the 300,000 worth of votes.
Jason, what are the big issues you're running on?
Well, look, I think life in greater Minnesota, as you know, Brannon, Minnesota's a very, very pro-life state. MCCL and Pro-Life Across America billboards are everywhere. So if the government is not going to protect the sanctity of life and your property and your liberty from a lockdown, from Planned Parenthood, from Antifa, then what good is the government? And that's really where we are now. I thought I'd be talking about my accomplishments in the 115th to get the economy going again, career and technical education, undoing onerous regulations, which we did in record numbers. But now it's just back to first principles, isn't it? You've got lockdowns, which I think are extra constitutional. You've got riots. You've got Joe Biden saying he's going to deny miners on the range their jobs. It's really, really getting to the point where people are afraid, if we don't prevail, what the country and state's going to look like on November 4th.
Let's open the phone lines for some folks to get in here on this. 1-800-347-9829, 1-800-347-9829. Again, 1-800-347-9829. My guest is Jason Lewis. He's running for the U.S. Senate in the state of Minnesota. And this state is very much in play. The president, I think, is touching down in your state today. I don't know if you know, Jason.
I will be joining him momentarily. You bet.
Well, good. I don't know if you know, Jason, I moved from the Twin Cities to Tennessee, where my family's originally from, the Mid-South. But we obviously are talking to people daily in the Twin Cities, friends and whatnot. So we're keeping track of your race, and we're keeping track of the fact that he's on the ground there a lot, which tells us the state's in play, which means you've got a really good chance at this. Tell me what...
Yeah, I can tell you this, Brannon. I've been tested for COVID 4 times in the last 4 weeks. And it wasn't because I enjoy it. It was because either the vice president or the president was in Minnesota, and I joined them.
And what are the crowds like?
Oh, crazy. I mean, crazy good. We were up in Bemidji a couple of weeks ago. I mean, as you know, Bemidji is not exactly a metropolitan area in northern Minnesota, and there were 12,000 people there. I mean, the enthusiasm gap in greater Minnesota, like greater Tennessee, is off the charts.
Tell me about the issue as we're going to go to some calls here in a minute. 1-800-347-9829 as I log into my call screener. Tell me, Jason, about the issue of the Second Amendment. Where is your opponent on the Second Amendment?
Well, I mean, if your uncle wants to give you a gun, they would have to first check with federal authorities in order to get that done. So they talk about the gun show loophole, but there isn't a licensed firearms dealer, whether they're doing a gun show or whether you're going into a shop that doesn't have to do a background check. That's already the law. When they say they're going to close the loophole and have the background check apply to private sales, it means that heirloom that your granddad had, that your dad had, that he hands to you, it now must be, I call it, effective federal registration. Second of all, she would ban about half of the hunting rifles in Minnesota. She calls them assault weapons. Mm-hmm. She still thinks AR-15 stands for assault rifle when it actually stands for Armalite. she's going to fail on the Second Amendment. But look, that's what's at stake with Amy Coney Barrett, isn't it? Whether the right to bear arms will remain an individual right.
Which, again, is another reason why your race is making national attention, because you're going into the U.S. Senate where those kind of votes take place on who sits on the U.S. Supreme Court. Let's go to Mark, line 1. Mark, thanks for calling in. You're on with Jason Lewis.
Yeah, my question is this. During peaceful protests this spring in Minneapolis, just how much was the rioting just an idea? As Joe Biden stated last night, I think he was in the Joe zone, but that's my question. I mean, he says Antifa is just an idea, so I just want to know just how much.
We had 1,500 buildings worth of damage from peaceful protests in Minneapolis, St. Paul. 1,500. I toured many of them. Most of them people of color who just say they wanted their property protected. The idea that A, Joe Biden, and B, the Fox News moderator, would focus not on Antifa, but on other threats was bizarre to me, because Antifa is the one who's rioting, and they don't show up at the Republican National Convention as delegates every 4 years. They are a left-wing, radical, Democrat, socialist organization that is the primary force behind the riots. And Biden thinks they're just an idea? It's bizarre.
1-800-347-9829. Let's go to line 2. Ben in Michigan. Ben, thanks for calling in. You're on with Jason Lewis.
Yes, the Founding Fathers felt that a republic was a country which that which the divine ruled on, they did not rule against. Now, would you support the federal government upholding Article 4, Section 4 of the U.S. Constitution, which states that the federal government is going to make sure that every state has a Republican form of government? There are many states which are clearly outside that historical mold of meant to be a republic form of government.
Well, you're probably talking about Baker v. Carr and one man, one vote with regard to state senates in several states, which used to be governed or fashioned like the United States Senate. They were apportioned by representing a district or a state, 2 people per state, no matter the population. That went to one man, one vote, which did change the structure in the federal or in the state government. I actually, before the first part of the 20th century, senators were appointed by state legislatures, and they were designed to represent the state in federal affairs. Regardless of whether you go back to that or you keep the popular vote, that's what senators have their first obligation to do, and what I intend to do. But I understand where you're coming from. I will say this: the larger threat right now to the Republican form of government, the constitutional republic, is the Democrats' pledge to pack the Supreme Court.
Absolutely.
That is the single biggest threat to the Republican form of government, because you eviscerate judicial review, you eviscerate separation of powers, you eviscerate everything.
We're going to go to break, come back for a few more minutes with Jason Lewis, who's running for the U.S. Senate in the state of Minnesota. He's just minutes from, I think you're going to be taking the stage with the President of the United States here in just a few minutes, are you not?
Well, we're heading out to the airport to greet him, and then off to Duluth a little later.
All right, so we'll ask him when we come back. The question that President Trump was asking Joe Biden last night: what police associations have endorsed Joe Biden? Well, what associations, law enforcement associations, have endorsed Jason Lewis? And what does that tell you, folks? This is coming down to being a law and order, election year. People are interested in law and order. I wonder why. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Glad you're with us. Worldview Radio, our website, worldviewradio.com. I guess U.S. Senatorial candidate Jason Lewis from the state of Minnesota. Jason, we're only going to keep you about another 5 minutes because I know you got to go. You're going to be in Duluth as well. We're on a big station up in Duluth. We're up in Cook, Minnesota. We're down in Rochester. And then, of course, then you got the internet. Jason, tell me about...
Well, we just got the endorsement of the Duluth News-Tribune this morning, believe it or not.
Congratulations. Congratulations.
Yeah.
All right, so President Trump asked Joe Biden, hey, what police associations have endorsed you? Why won't you say the word, law and order and all these other words he wasn't wanting to use last night? But how about you, Jason? What law enforcement organizations, police organizations have endorsed you? And do I remember correctly, wasn't your wife a sheriff deputy at one time?
I like to tell people, Brannon, that I didn't know much about cops till I married one. My wife was a police officer in the St. Paul PD for 8 years. Her dad was 28. So I've got a very close connection to the blue and the men and the women backing the blue, and we need to back the blue. But I've been endorsed by the Minneapolis Fraternal Order of Police, by the Minnesota Police and Peace Officers Association, by the Minneapolis Police Federation, by every major law enforcement agency in the state. My opponent has been endorsed by none.
Wow. All right, let's go back to the phone lines. Let's go to line 1. Amanda, thank you for calling in. Go ahead, Amanda. No? All right, go ahead, Amanda.
Oh, hi.
Come on, Amanda.
I didn't know I was up. My question was, if Biden wins and it's clearly fraudulent, what do you expect to happen? Not just not in the courts, but out in the streets, or do you expect it to just be normal process of changing power, or is anyone preparing for?
Yep, man, that's a great question. Let's all pray for a landslide on November 3rd, right?
Yeah.
It's so overwhelming. The silent majority rises up, and President Trump, no matter what, is going to be elected for a second term, and we hold the Senate and gain back the House or get close. Let's hope for that. Short of that, I think it'll be delayed until we see how the process works out. But the real, and this is why Amy Coney Barrett, not to mention her great jurisprudence in the Scalia tradition, but this is why she needs to be confirmed. You will, not unlike hanging chads in Florida in 2000, you will have the federal government make certain that under the color of law, people haven't been disenfranchised in their vote. And that means vote cheating, or it means suppression. It can mean either one. So it is going to wind up in federal court. That will go to the Supreme Court. And to your point, the real danger would be if you had 8 members on the court and they came to a 4-4 tie. Then you would have Antifa climbing the gate at the White House, because there would be no resolution to it. And you're going to have protests either way, probably, but that would be something we've never seen.
In the final 2 minutes, Jason, anyone that listens to your national radio show or listened to you for years on AM 1500 KSTP knows that you are big and are big about limited government, the free market, getting government off the back of people. What are your plans if you get into the U.S. Senate, and what did you do in the House as a member of the House of Representatives that shows us what you'll do in the U.S. Senate?
I voted against the FISA reauthorization bill, and I had a lot of Republicans trying to twist my arm, say no, and I said there's no place for secret courts in America. Well, lo and behold, Brandon, now we see what these secret courts have done.
Yes.
We had Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden conspiring with Russian disinformation to create false affidavits to undo the will of the people in an election. They went to a secret court, got the imprimatur of the probable cause, and got wiretaps to spy on American citizens in the opposing campaign. When the FISA reauthorization, including Program 702, was up, I said, no, we didn't have it before 1978. It's now become an imprimatur for political machinations. I'm not going to support it. And that's really, look, conservatives, people who understand we get our rights from God, not the government, and people who also understand we are all equal under the eyes of God, so therefore no man shall rule us, are civil libertarians. And spying on your political opponent used to make old school Democrats, Otis Pike, Frank Church, the 1970s, cringe. Now big government Democrats basically weaponize it. That's got to stop.
And then in the area of business, small business, what are you going to do? What is your plan there?
Well, I'm very proud of what we did in the Tax Cut and Jobs Act to lower those the top marginal tax rate with a 20% income deduction right off the top. So if you're a non-C Corp, LLC, subchapter S, sole proprietor, a partnership, you got the biggest tax cut probably in history and got that top rate down to 29%. We need to make certain that stays. Joe Biden is saying let's repeal that and tack on $4 trillion more. No way.
So pretty clear cut between your worldview and that of your opponent. And Jason,
oh, my goodness. Could not be more clear cut. And frankly, it's up to everybody listening to get the word out. If you care about life, if you care about liberty, if you care about religious freedom, and if you care about economic growth, a rising tide, Tina Smith cannot be reelected. I don't care if you live in Tennessee or Maine or California or Minnesota. I'm going to be one of 100 senators doing the good fight. I need your help.
And that's exactly why we had you on, because this is a national issue. It's a national security issue. It's a religious issue. It's a freedom of speech issue, all of those things. Jason, thank you again for your time. We'll let you go because we know you're on a tough schedule today. Thank you so much for being with us, Jason.
Brandon, my pleasure. Thank you, sir.
Jason Lewis checking in, running for U.S. Senate in the state of Minnesota. We'll keep taking your calls, 1-800-347-9829, 1-800-347-9829. What did you think about last night's debate? Now, I watched it.